Let's go deeper into the operator trap and enterprise value. How does being stuck in the operator trap affect the value of the business?
If someone buys a business and they're buying the business to operate the business, then it's maybe less of an issue. Many times people get into business because they want freedom. And then they get in this business and they work really hard, because anytime you start any business, you got to work really hard. You learn that the more hours you work, the better the business does. And you just rinse and repeat as you're growing. And then you've boxed yourself into this golden bars of the operator trap, where there's only 168 hours in a week and you're working all of them that you can. You got to sleep some of them. You maybe want to see your family once in a while. You should probably bathe and eat occasionally. And there's nowhere for growth to go through you anymore. You're trapped.
Building a legacy starts with the bold decision to take a leap of faith. Behind every empire lies a foundation of grit, willpower, and the courage to take big risks. Welcome to Entrepreneurship Unlocked, where world shakers in the business world gather to share their stories. We're diving deep into the mindset of the modern entrepreneur to show you exactly what it takes to become truly unlocked. Join us in the pursuit of excellence with your host, Seth Rudin. This is Entrepreneurship Unlocked.
Hello, this is Seth Rudin. Welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneurship Unlocked. I have the good fortune of introducing Mr. Mike DeJong. He's a multi-business owner, a keynote speaker, and the author of Grow Smart, Your Path to Mastering Freedom from Operator to Owner. Over the past 30 years across multiple industries, including the decade in franchising, Mike has built businesses, turned around struggling operations, and is often the person called to fix what isn't working. He recently exited the majority of his Nothing Bundt Cakes franchises. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Seth. Happy to be here.
So glad to talk to you again and catch up with you. As you guys know, I'm a business broker in the Pacific Northwest covering the West Coast, and I enjoy just sharing great practices and helping my audience learn. The first thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to answer the big picture question today. And that is, why do some business owners build companies that are worth millions while others simply buy themselves a job? And after Mike and I go through our conversation, we hope you'll have the answer to that, and we'll circle back to that in just a second. Mike, how did you become an entrepreneur?
Reluctantly kicking and screaming. No, that's not quite true. Like a lot of people, I started with, I call them jobbies. You know, you kind of have a hobby that you're doing in your garage. And I did some of that, and I was working for a Fortune 500 company doing operations, a few thousand units over multiple states. And my area did great, and the company as a whole had a failing year, so no bonuses. And I'm like, this hurts. And then the board voted bonuses. I'm like, yay, I'm gonna get paid. But they spread it evenly amongst everybody. It wasn't like performance based, and that was just the nail in the coffin. I'm like, oh man, I'm killing myself. I'm performing. And the guy that was sitting at home phoning it in is getting the same amount of money as me. This doesn't feel good. And that's when I started looking in earnest for something else to do for myself.
Very smart. I mean, meritocracy has a lot of goodwill to it. And, being socialized like that, I definitely see the incentives. So you had a few choices, right? You could buy a franchise, you could have bought a business that wasn't a franchise, or you could have started one from scratch. Just curious if you could walk us through how you chose which business models that you did.
Yeah, absolutely. So Seth, I spent, even before that, years before that, I kind of dabbled looking at, like I said, at those jobbies, kind of did some stuff with making custom GPS equipment and, part-time flight instructing, like just nothing that was like really great in that area. And I realized I wasn't like, maybe had all the skills I needed to be a business owner out of the gate. So that's when I refocused my attention on getting a franchise, because I figured a franchise would have a lot of systems and processes in place. They have like a playbook, they give you an operations manual. They're a proven model. Like, I'm going to go try that. And then I could have a little bit of room to figure out the stuff that I don't have. And then once I made that decision, I just started going through the list. And I think a lot of us maybe look at the same things first, McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and Subway and, the big ones we see everywhere.
Yeah.
I didn't know about something called a franchise broker at the time, so I didn't have someone that was helping me. I don't know how I didn't find that on the internet, but maybe 10 years ago the internet wasn't like it is now. And then a really good friend opened a Nothing Bundt Cakes, and I said, "What the heck is that?" And went and checked it out and tried the cake, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so good! How do I get one of these?" And by the way, does it actually make money? And he showed me his books, and it was making money.
Well, that's great.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
It's not often you find that, and have a friend that's willing to open their books. It's a really good friend.
Yeah, well, we used to work at the same place. We were, I call us frenemies, fierce competitors, but good friends.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good to have.
Yeah. We're always pushing each other higher and higher. So.
Absolutely. And are you a baker now, or just that was a good business for you to own?
So I still own one in the greater Seattle area, and I'm building out a couple more out there. But I did, like you said in the introduction, recently sold 4 in Wisconsin. And I was running them, all remotely. I was living, and we were talking just before this. I'm coming to you live from an Airbnb in Galveston, Texas. Been living on the road since last December on purpose. I just wanted to not be nailed down and running everything remotely. So I've got my version of freedom.
Every time I talk to you, I hear some exciting stories. I love it. So
yeah.
When you bought these, just for the buyers out there, how extensive was the analysis, of jumping in? Was it, because you had all the experience, it was more gut feel? Did you do like a deep dive with business case? Like what level of analysis did you do?
Yeah. So my initial analysis was, when I first started looking at it, was all numbers all the time. I actually showed up to the final meeting. You have an in-person meeting before they give you a yay or nay decision. With a binder, I'm not even exaggerating. It was a 5-inch thick binder full of all my notes and research and questions and stuff I'd printed out and looked at before getting to that meeting. But in reality, I think it comes down to a gut check. Like, does this make sense for me? Like, the numbers have to work, obviously. If the numbers don't work, why would you do anything? But does this make sense for me? And the numbers worked, and then I had that final meeting, and the gut check worked, and they agreed to take me on as a franchisee, and the rest of they say is history.
That's good. I've never had anybody show up with a 5-inch book, but that's impressive.
Yeah.
And I do. 100%.
It was a little bit overkill.
The spidey sense still has to check. Like, if your spidey is up, then you better back out. So I think,
absolutely. I've done a couple other deals since then where the spidey sense was telling me different things than the numbers, and well, I didn't quite regret them. I did learn a lot. It was a lot more work than I just didn't understand what I was getting into. So
I bet. And then obviously you sold before, like you talked about before. What was the prompt that, hey, it's time to sell these for?
It was a confluence of things. At the time, I was ready to get more on the road and not be tied down to Wisconsin. And while I was running them mostly remotely, when you're still close, you have a tendency to want to go in and dabble. I had recently, a year before, bought that location out in the greater Seattle area, and I thought, I'm going to move out there and have a complete change of life. My kids recently had left for college, and wasn't tied down to anything anymore. And then at the same time, a buyer showed up that was acquiring groups of bakeries throughout the country, and made me an offer that this made sense. Like, the numbers worked. I'm like, oh, this is a fair price. I'm ready to move. Yeah, let's do this.
That's wonderful. You never know when prosperity comes your way.
That's true. That's true.
Now let's dig into some of your favorite topics. I know from talking to you the enjoyment you get from helping business owners, or soon to be business owners, right? Because you could help both sellers and those who want to become a business owner create value for themselves, obviously over a job, like, what you did for yourself. So first, if we're talking to a business owner, we're talking about how to build value and to prepare for exit. Why do some franchise owners build businesses that command, a premium valuation, while others struggle to maybe even sell at all?
Yeah, is it the $64 million question now? I don't think it's $64,000 anymore. Inflation has taken hold. And maybe that reference won't hold with some of the younger viewers. But anyway, the biggest thing is the owner themselves. If they're the center of attention, if all things, decisions, or even some decisions go through the owner, they're a roadblock to that valuation. The more you could remove yourself from the operation, the more salable the business is. Like, is someone coming in doesn't want to have to replace you and train a manager. They just want to take over what you have and probably in their minds improve it, but not have to like make up for you leaving. And I think a lot of business owners, they operate their business. They're literally stuck in it. They're trapped in it. The operator trap. They're stuck in that business, and they're the key piece. And if they leave, there is no business. So that's why they're not valuable. They're just not even salable.
And it's all about delegation and trust. You're just not seeing the big picture, Rick. I don't know if you have
everyone, and I mean literally everyone I talk to says, I can't find anyone as good as me to do fill in the blank task. No one cares as much as I do. I tried hiring people and they failed. And these are a common theme that they're just a myopic view on how they were, as you said, delegating. They weren't delegating. They were probably abdicating. They're like, go do this task with no direction, no training, no operations, no SOP, no anything. And then the person likely didn't do it the way the owner wanted it done or to their standard or, fill in the blank reason. And then, the owner steps in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then they're like, I tried everything. Well, you tried once or you tried twice. You didn't, the mindset shift there is, how can I find someone who's better at this task than I am? And once I made that leap, it really opened up the expansion, and we started growing faster and said to get out of people's way. Like I started becoming the roadblock the opposite direction. I was slowing people down.
Agreed. 100%. Now look at you today. You're traveling and you still have ongoing profitable businesses that you're able to manage. You're not in the business, you're working on it.
Right.
Presumably. So you've obviously witnessed a lot of things. What is the biggest mistake owners make, when they're thinking about building value in their business?
Yeah, the biggest owner they mistake is generally ego based, and it's believing that they are the most important piece of their business, which makes sense on the surface, right? It's like, it's my business, I own it. No one's going to care as much as I do. Therefore, I have to insert myself in the business all over the place, and it's the one thing that just kills growth eventually. There's only 168 hours in the week and you can't work all of them. And even if you get it when you're working 40, if you're still working those 40 and whoever buys it has to replace that, it's just not easy or something most people want to do. So it's getting out of your own business. You can own the business without operating the business. It's kind of this crazy mindset. That's number one. And number two is if they do get into that spot, because I've also made this mistake, Seth, is you don't look at any or the correct key performance indicators or KPIs, and then the business starts to suffer or almost fail in my case. Hopefully you catch it in time where you could jump back in and make some adjustments. But I'm not advocating like you can't spend zero time on your business. There's no such thing as truly passive income, but I am advocating looking at the right KPIs, having effective short meetings, being involved where it makes sense, but not being like the driver. You're supposed to set the strategy and allocate the resources, and then let the people you hired do the actual work.
I imagine you got a dashboard. It's got stuff around AR, how much your accounts payable is, working capital, sales, unit growth, and then you're calling your team once periodically to check in with them, make sure that everybody's happy.
Yeah, it's a bi-weekly meeting right now, and then a quarterly visit and actually I'm overdue on my quarterly visit, but it's generally a quarterly visit. And exactly those things. Another thing I look at that can kill you in the quick serve area is labor. That's very important. And then customer satisfaction, not just their overall satisfaction. People say they're happy, but I like to look at their likelihood to recommend and their likelihood to return on when we survey people. And then I love, this sounds like crazy to almost everyone I say it to, I love looking at the negative comments or the bad things that happen. Used to really bother me. I'm like, oh, the customer doesn't understand. It's like, no, this is a great opportunity to make a change, because one out of 100, 1,000, 10,000 people actually take the time to write out that why they weren't happy. So we're probably not serving a lot of people really well. So this is a great area where we could now, up our game. That's where I spend. Those are the key KPIs that I look at now.
That's a good one. I like it. A lot of people can learn from that.
Yeah.
At what point does a business stop being a job and then it starts turning into an asset?
Yeah, when it doesn't actually need you anymore to run. And I don't mean day to day, I mean like really at all.
How do you recognize that?
Yeah. So my metric where I figured it out for myself was I went on a vacation. It's the first vacation, and I could tell that story if you want, but
Sure.
where I realized that I needed to make some changes. And then I started taking a series of vacations afterwards, like longer ones and shorter ones, to see what would break. And then whatever broke when I was gone, I changed the policy, put in a new procedure, figure out someone else to do it, implement training, whatever it is. So I was just removing myself one step at a time from the day-to-day operation of the business. There's some things you don't even realize that you're the roadblock on or you're responsible for until you're not available to do it.
That's a great way to do it. I like that. If you're able to run and you're on vacation, I can just move on to my next project and do the things you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing this probably leads into this next question, which is, how can an owner tell if they built a sellable business versus one that only works if you're there?
Yeah. If they're still, again, into the, like we were just talking about, if they're still running the day to day, I'm not saying it's not saleable, but it's a lot harder to sell. And I'm sure, Seth, you've seen this more than I have. Versus they have a key manager or managers, depending on the size of the business, in place. They have a dashboard. They have everything operationalized. They've figured out all their, and people overthink SOPs. It's like, they're so easy. They're not so easy, but they can be easier to do than you think of. It's not sitting at a computer and typing it out. You could just, like we're doing now, just record an SOP as you're doing it. Just verbal diarrhea. I'm going to this website. I'm checking this thing. I go over here, boom, there's your SOP. Hand it off to someone. They can take care of it. But to get back to the question, if all those things are in place and it's just a change of ownership, a lot easier to sell than, okay, and now we have to train someone to do everything that last owner was doing.
And I would say from my perspective, selling businesses, I've seen companies that are full absentee, not, completely, obviously, like what you're describing, to having an owner that works 40 or 80 and, buyers will buy the businesses. They just have to adjust the replacement cost of ownership, to still a good business, right? Just because the owner works 40 hours now will be more valuable, to an owner who, hey, I just want to run it and watch it. Then for that specific, if it's an owner operator, then they can fill in that role. But I do agree with you. The optimal is the ability to work on the business and not be in a critical scheduling or the design of a product, et cetera, role.
Yeah, I knew I was finally successful when our holiday seasons in the bakery business are big. Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day. You get the idea. And I was always a driving force the early years. And one year, the team looked at me and they're like, "Can you just?" Okay, we're saying this with all due respect. Can you just leave? And I'm like, what? Like, you're slowing us down. Can you just go do something else? We got this. And I'm like, oh shit. All right.
Getting in my way.
Yeah. That's what I'm like. Oh, I'm there. Woo.
Great. The best thing you did was leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go deeper into the operator trap and enterprise value. How does being stuck in the operator trap affect the value of the business?
So you were talking about, if someone buys a business and they're buying the business to operate the business, then it's maybe less of an issue. But I think all of us, almost anyone, you should never use the words all the time, everyone, never, I get it. Got to catch myself. Many times people get into business because they want freedom. They want to be able to define their own schedule. They want to be able to do things with their kids or their family. They want to go on trips, whatever freedom looks like to that individual. And then they get in this business and they work really hard because anytime you start any business, you got to work really hard. I haven't met anyone yet that just like shows up 5 minutes a week and the start of a business just hasn't. Maybe with AI it'll happen in the future, but it hasn't happened yet.
That's good.
And you learn that the more hours you work, the better the business does, and you just rinse and repeat as you're growing. And then you've boxed yourself into this golden bars of the operator trap where there's only 168 hours in a week and you're working all of them that you can. You got to sleep some of them. Maybe you want to see your family once in a while. You should probably bathe and eat occasionally. And there's nowhere for growth to go through you anymore. You're trapped. And you can't grow. If you can't grow, it's either you're growing or you're dying in business. I don't think there is any holding steady. Inflation will eat that alive. And if you're not growing, you're dying, and you're in this trap. And then anyone that wants to come and buy it has to, like you said earlier, has to replace you, whether that's 40 hours, 80 hours, 100 hours. And it just really reduces the enterprise value of that business. Plus a single unit sale versus if you get to a spot where you could scale to 2, 3, 10, 100 units, whatever is the right number for you, whether that's franchising or not franchising, becomes a lot more valuable than that single unit sale.
100%. And as you're saying, the financials degrade just over time. So
that's right.
How about, can a highly profitable business become a poor acquisition target for someone?
It always can. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to say never. But we run into that same trap again. Who's your pool of buyers? The people that want to come and take over exactly what you're doing to maintain that profitability, or someone that wants to come in and harness that profitability without having to do the day-to-day operations. And then again, you've limited yourself. Like, you might be highly profitable. What's highly profitable? Is it you got a 80% margin? Well, 80% margin of what? 100,000 in sales, 1 million in sales, 10 million in sales, 100 million in sales. That's a different number for everybody. And you will cap out on how much you can do if you're the only person doing it. So you want to get that maximum value for your business, you have to remove yourself so that you can grow the business.
So the key point here is delegate and assign other people to do it and be the puppet master. So that
the puppet master, yeah. But don't abdicate. That's what most people do. They call it delegation. They'll just say, Seth, go do this thing. They don't say, Seth, here's the SOP on how to do this thing. Here's the deadline to do the thing. Here's the tools you'll need to do the thing. Here's how I want the thing done. Go do the thing. They're just like, go do the thing. And then you'll fail at it. And then they get mad. And then they're like, I tried everything. I can't do that. It's just how you delegate versus abdicate makes all the difference in the world. And then you have to know people will fail. Yeah. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to cost you money.
It's okay.
And it always seems to hurt more when someone else costs you money. We all seem to forget the mistakes that we made in business that cost us money.
Yes, that's true.
And, we forget we're not perfect. I could think of so many that cost so much, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in mistakes, Seth. But when someone goes and like blows $1,000 on something, you're just like, oh my God, like that's the end of the world. And you totally forgot that I just blew 50,000 the month before making a bad decision. You gotta live through that and train through that and yeah, dare I say it, love through that and let people know that it's not the end of the world and what they learn from it, and then keep that training going and move forward. And they'll eventually grow into a great leader if you keep working with them.
Makes sense. I love these next two questions coming. So I'm meeting with the business owner. I can tell that he's, dependent. The business is dependent on him. What systems are you going to recommend that he can create value in that business from a buyer's perspective?
So the systems he or she should create are all of them. There should be a system for everything. Literally a system for everything. I resisted this for so long, Seth. My background's in aviation engineering, and there's all systems and processes in aviation engineering. That's why aviation is so safe and why engineering is so safe. And in corporate America, I had systems and processes, and I got my own business. I'm like, I don't I don't want to do this anymore. I hate the meetings. I hate everything written down. I hate that I have to like find this subset and do it this way. I'm just going to empower everyone, and we're just going to sing kumbaya and have this great business. And it works for a minute and then it doesn't. So you just need to have these systems, and the systems, people overthink it. It's not like where am I going to find time to sit down and write this stuff out? I used to say, let's take your biggest moneymaker and systemize that right away. And then I find people would struggle with it. It's just too big, too amorphous, too much work for the first time out of the gate. Now I'm like, take the simplest thing you do, the easiest, simplest thing you do in your business, and let's make a process out of it. And they'll laugh like, well, we order coffee and vending machine stuff once a month. I'm like, great, let's make a process. Well, why do we need a process of that? You go to the website and order some stuff. I'm like, let's make a process out of it.
Exactly.
And we'll sit down and we'll fire up Zoom or Descript or some other video software and just record making, like, I go here, I do this, I click over here. This is how I know how much I need, blah, blah, blah. And then you hand it. I'm like, great, next month, hand it off to someone else and have them do it. You don't do it. Well, it only takes me 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't care if it takes you 1 minute. You're not doing it anymore. Hand it off. They get that handoff. They get the dopamine hit. And you get the dopamine hit. You're like, oh, I accomplished something. This is really good. Then we'll do something else. Then we'll do something else. And by the time you're building up to the actual hard stuff, it's never easy, but it's so easier. And then you got to leave some room for making improvements in them. Like what gets you to 100,000 in sales is going to break before you get to 1 million in sales, is going to break before you get to 10 million in sales. But, recognize that and then just keep updating your processes and systems. But the key to this answer here is put in systems that remove you from the system.
And the world just gave you AI to complement that, right? It's not only are you
100%.
advocating systems, now you can use AI and doing it in the same way as what people are advocating. Take your simplest process, make it work, then go to the next one and build up on your complexity with knowledge.
Yeah, I'm not even saying get AI to do it for you. Like that's the next
step.
step.
100%.
Yeah, and you can. For a lot of those, AI probably could do it. It's just
a lot of the steps you just described as examples, obviously.
Right.
So obviously, if you're going to delegate to people, you got to have a leadership development program so that the younger people or smarter people who are not getting all that delegation, how do you do that?
So the first step is identifying who on your team shows some leadership qualities. Just because someone has a title doesn't mean they're necessarily a leader. Like manager doesn't equal leader. I've inherited some managers in businesses I bought that were not leaders at all. And it's easier to develop someone that shows some leadership aptitude than to start with someone that doesn't. But I'm not saying it's impossible. I've been successful in both areas. I've also been unsuccessful in both areas.
My boss used to say that it was a black box and they always picked the type A performer, but that wasn't always your best people manager. So to your point, true. Right? It's not always the top performer.
But it's someone that shows some initiative, someone that's willing to, come in a little earlier, stay a little late to help with the project, someone that asks questions, that has curiosity about the business, someone that when you're discussing the business doesn't roll their eyes and not care, but actually like, oh, this is like, tell me about the ins and outs. They like it. So you identify some internal leaders, or you have to go outside and find them that way, which is usually a mix of the two is the way to go. And then it's building their leadership traits. It's giving them some responsibility. It's helping. It's not scolding them when they fail, because they will. It's guiding them during that responsibility. Like, hey, that conversation that you had with Billy about how he was always a half hour late. You can't just say, Billy, you effing suck. Why are you always a half hour late? That's not the right way to handle that. Like, what we need to do is, and then you sit down and explain how to do it in the right way. And maybe you can even build a procedure out of it. Like, hey, when someone's late, this is the conversation you should have. I haven't quite got down to that level yet, but maybe I should. I also have been known to send people to leadership development training. Tony Robbins and his community has a leadership course once a year that is absolutely like world class. That's great. Local chambers of commerce, the ones that where I was in Wisconsin, one of them had some great leadership training once a year. So I'd send people to that. There was a local WCTC, Waukesha County Technical College, had some leadership stuff. They didn't label as leadership stuff, but if you read between the lines, that's what they were teaching. Like, hey, go take this class. I'll pay for it. I'll pay for the class. And sometimes I'll even pay for your time while you're at the class. It depends on the individual, how, and then it's finding them a mentor. That's maybe it's you, maybe it's someone else in the organization, maybe it's someone outside the organization. In a combination of all those things builds good leaders versus just like, hey, you're a leader, go for it. Read some books, figure it out. Watch some YouTube videos. You got this. Like you gotta be what's the word? Intentional about it, in my opinion. Because when I haven't been, it generally doesn't work out. The hopes and dreams does not make a leader.
And I take it through your experience when you effectively execute on your consistent development plan with your leaders, this is going to increase the value of the business.
It absolutely has. I took one of my favorite success stories in my own businesses, and I have some from when I was working in corporate America. I was always, my favorite thing in the world is to grow people. Like that's why I do what I do. I love helping people. It gives me the juice in the morning. But I had a woman that worked for me. She's a retired school principal, had a degree in master's degree in biology, and she came to work for me as a baker. And she's like, I'm just going to be a baker. I'm going to do a baker for 10 years, and then I'm going to retire. And this is all I want to do, and I'm done. And over time, she went from baking to being responsible for the back of the house. And just because she had those other skills doesn't mean she was actually necessarily a good leader. Had to do a lot of leadership training along the way. I was surprised by how much. And then she became the store manager, and then eventually the district manager. And she was actually the first employee I ever hired. And it was really, when I sold those businesses, it was really hard to break the news to her that we were going to be parting ways as in this kind of like mentor, mentee, friend, employee. It was just a lot. It was a very like undefined relationship, but it was like, that was tough. Like one of the things that almost stopped me from selling was like, oh, I'm going to have to tell Kay. Like, oh.
Well, they become like family, and it's
no, absolutely.
You spend more time sometimes with your colleagues than you do your wives or significant others.
There was times where she cared more than I did.
Yeah,
like those people exist.
Yeah, 100% employee. That's what you want. That's an owner acting. An employee acting as an owner.
Yeah.
I was going to shift to scaling and growing your business, if that's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go there.
Great. So I want to go from a single or a double location franchise. How do I, does growth often make it more valuable, or is this going to be a mistake? Am I going to make it less valuable? Like, how do I know, is this the right move for us?
When you're deciding whether you want to grow, usually people want to grow because they want more money. That's usually what it is. Or it's an ego thing. But it's usually kind of tied into like, I could grow because I'm going to be more prestige, or I need more money. And often they haven't optimized what they have, meaning everything's still going through them. They're still very much an operator, not an owner. And if they scale at that moment, all they'll do is scale chaos, because you can't be in two places at the same time. Neither place will do that well. The second place will definitely not pick up to speed as fast. The original location will suffer and usually go backwards. You'll work even more hours, even though you don't know where they're coming from. They're coming from your sleep budget, by the way. And you'll actually start making less money because the first location is not as profitable, and you just put all this money in this new location and it's not performing. And you're like, what did I do? So what you need to do is get that first place locked down where you don't need to be there. Not saying, whenever I say you don't need to be there, it's not like you can't be there. It's not that you shouldn't be there. It's like you don't need to be there. If you got
so you can go on a 4-week vacation and it runs.
Yeah, if you want to go on a month-long vacation, or heaven forbid you had an illness, your business is still going to run and take care of you and your family even without you being there. So you get that piece locked in, and then you make sure you have some financial resources. Some people want to bootstrap their second location. Some people get investors, SBA, whatever the thing is that gets you to your second location. Great. But I really recommend, only because I didn't do this the first time I scaled, and it really like caused, I lost most of my hair during this moment, is the financial piece of it. You think it's going to do better. You think, you're always an optimist. We're always an optimist. You think it's going to do better than it is. Even if you're using the numbers from when your first location opened, you're like, I'm going to do at least as good as that, et cetera, et cetera. You have to have some financial resources in the bank. And I would say it's at least 3 months of operating costs. This is my own personal guidelines for the existing location. And then another 3 months for the new location to give it a moment to get up to speed. Your labor is not going to be as efficient. No one's going to know their job as well. Everything's going to cost you more. There's always things that break right out of the gate. There's just little expenses you don't think of your first time you grow. You get better at this as you do your second and third and fourth, or you get the idea. But yeah, so having the processes in place, the procedures in place, the people in place. I recommend having your manager and maybe your assistant manager with you for some period of months before that second location opens. Training. Yeah, there's a cost to that. Having them in your first location when you really don't need them. But you do, because they're training to start your next location. They're learning your culture. They're learning your processes. Once you have all that in place, then it's finding the right location, et cetera, all the other things that make sense for the growth. But if you don't do those steps first, you could have the best location in the world with the best product and the best customers, and you're going to lose your mind.
That's really good advice for the single business owners who want to expand, whether it's manufacturing locations or multiple retail, locations, whatever that business, get that one down right. And then go on vacation, make sure it doesn't break. If it does, fix it, and then go back on vacation, and then come back and then get some money, save, and then go for it. I like it.
That's my advice. Yeah. If you want to sleep at night.
Yeah. Exactly. Who wants to sleep? It's overrated.
That used to be one of my mottos, plenty of time to sleep when I'm dead. You're going to have a very short life if you continue with that, though. So,
agreed, 100%. Lots more to enjoy. We live to work or work to live.
Mm-hmm.
So let's shift a little bit, and no pun intended. What is the mindset shift that needs to happen for an entrepreneur to build something that will outlast them?
It is the hardest thing in everything we've talked about is the mindset shift. And the mindset shift the realization that has to happen is that I am the roadblock. In almost every situation, the owner will point fingers at the customers or the suppliers or the employees or the location or and. And it's really just deflection of ego. They are the roadblock. And having that
aha moment that gets them there.
I'm sorry?
What's usually the aha moment? Like, I am the roadblock. Like, how do they recognize that it's them?
Yeah, I use the thing I talked about at the beginning is can you go on a vacation without your phone, without your laptop, without any piece of technology and completely unplugged for your business, and it will run 100% without you. And if it can't, you're the roadblock. Or you can get nitty gritty with them and they're like, I could do that. I'm like, all right, let's look at your day to day. What things have to come through you for approval? And usually it's a dollar amount or a client thing or whatever. I'm like, okay, why? And they give you the reasons. Okay, why can't we build a process around that and have an approval matrix where someone else, if it hits all the boxes, it gets done? Well, it's amorphous. I have a gut feeling. I'm like, well, why do you? Has your gut feeling always, if you won 100% of them, maybe we can go backwards and look at the deals that have made you money versus the deals that haven't made you money. And we could pick apart what happened. But in any case, we could figure out that they're the roadblock and we could kind of get that mindset going that they are. And then there's a framework I use. I call it your ascent protocol. And it's just realizing that in life, we've heard this, but we don't necessarily have a process around it. There's stories and there are facts. So the facts happen, and then we tell stories to make them fit our life because our brains like shortcuts. And if we had to think about everything all the time, we'd burn a heck of a lot more calories, which in my case would be good right now. I'm putting on the weight. But in most cases, the brains are trying to save calories. So we make these assumptions, and we've been making them since we were babies, and we learn these things. So once we realize there's facts and then we tell stories about the facts, we realize that we could start telling a different story. And people usually are like, hey, no, the story I'm telling is absolutely like, that's what's going on. I'm like, is it? Is that really what's going on? Is that 100% true? And you get them to think about it, and they're like, well, maybe it's not 100% true. I'm like, okay, well, even if it is 100% true, how does that make you feel? Like, is it a good thing that this is 100% true? And usually it's not. And it's like, all right, well, how can we realign the facts here to make a change? And an example I use, because it's simple to apply, but it's hard to apply at the same time, is when I started using this, is I used to get like irate when I get cut off in traffic, Seth. Like, you put me in danger. Why are you more important than me? All like lots of swear words in my head usually. Sure. Like just like angry, like, and I'm like, okay, this is not serving me. Me being angry while I'm driving a car at 70 miles an hour down the freeway is probably not a good thing. I should probably change this. How can I change this? Well, the story I'm telling myself right now, the fact is the guy cut me off. The story I'm telling myself is that he's an idiot who's going to endangering everyone's life, including my own. How can I insert a different story into this? And I thought about it for a minute. And sometimes you have to put a ridiculous story in to make the change. I'm like, what if they're not an idiot? What if they're rushing to the hospital so they can make it to their and I still get emotional. I built this into myself so deeply, get to their mother's deathbed so they could say goodbye. Well, that kind of changes how you feel about it. You're like, go, man, go, make it. Woo. Yeah, make it happen. Versus like, you're a friggin' idiot who's putting everyone in danger. And my heart doesn't like explode and I don't like get angry anymore. And that's an example of my personal life. But in business, I went from like, why did people do these things? And everyone sucks. And I can't find good employees to how can I find a better employee? And how can I better understand what's going on in Seth's life so I could understand why Seth did what he did? And in starting to dig and change the narrative in my head. And that just changed that roadblock and got me out of the way and allowed everyone else to go. But it's just knowing there's facts, knowing there's stories, and knowing that you could change that story anytime. But you got to practice.
Great mindset practice. They talk a lot about the world of abundance, that, if you're a sales team, there's plenty of opportunities, no reason to be jealous or competitive with your peer, right? Same thing here, or sharing the road, maybe he does have a personal problem. Let's support him. Let's not be angry. I wouldn't have guessed that about you with your demeanor, that you would be that guy, but I do it too.
That's the only area where I really have any rage or had any rage in my life.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
You've touched on this a little bit, to get to this place of destiny, right? Which is, don't have a job, have a delegation team. You got to create a culture that survives that leadership transition, which is really important when we sell a business, right? To go from the owner to the new buyer. Can you talk about that? How to build a culture that will survive that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're running the business, the culture kind of is usually built unintentionally around just how you act. You define the culture. And if you're scaling, it's usually not you defining the culture anymore. So that's why in your second location, your third location, maybe the culture doesn't match up. So when you are accidentally defining the culture, you could take the time, and again, say this a lot, write down what the culture is and then bring it to your people, and they'll be like, ha 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 ha, ha. Come on, Mike, that's not what we do here. So I've changed that, and I'm like, let's sit down together and write it down into one or two sentences. What is our culture? What do we believe in? When I had the bakeries, it's like, we bring joy. That was our culture.
Love it.
That's how we deal with everything, external or internal, is we bring joy. Make it simple. All right. Now, what does that mean in application? Well, Seth, you just screwed this thing up. You suck. No, that doesn't bring any joy. How about, Seth, you come to me and say, hey, Mike, I screwed this thing up. Here's what happened. Here's what I learned from it. Here's how we're going to make a change. It's the 100-0 policy of 100% responsibility, 0% blame. And here's what we're going to do about it. And people look around and you don't bite their head off or start pointing fingers at them. people start coming forward and change starts to happen and culture starts to build. And you could define that in your next location with, we bring joy. And here's how we do it: 100-0, customer first, etc. And then live it when you actually show up, not pointing fingers, not blaming, but here's what we do. And next thing you know, you got this wonderful culture that when the next owner comes in, they just inherit it, unless they want to change it. If the business is working, though, why would they want to? They can inherit it, versus like the culture just leaves with you because you are the culture.
Makes sense. I like it. We teach that in youth baseball. I coach competitive baseball. You make an error. You're like, hey, my bad. Next play. Give me the ball. I want it.
Perfect. Yeah. They're learning it right when they should.
Same thing here. And I do think baseball teaches life lessons really well.
I couldn't agree more. So many sports things teach life lessons.
Absolutely. And it's a controlled environment. That could be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some things personal to you, and I think, the audience will appreciate and learn from. I certainly am going to. You came within 60 days of bankruptcy at one point in your life. What did that experience teach you about building a business that lasts?
Oh, it taught me that there's no such thing as truly passive income. It taught me that you can never completely separate yourself from running your business. There always has to be some KPIs that you're looking at to know that it's healthy and running properly. And it taught me humility. I mean, I really thought I was hot shit at the time. I'm like, look at this. I got all these things going and they're all making money. And I was living like vacation to vacation. That year I went to Africa twice. I went here, I went there, I went this other place. So I'm like, this is great. I'm living the best life. And January came around. In January, I usually have a pretty big bank account from the holidays, and that holds me through to May, because no one eats any cake in January. A little bit more in February, a little bit more in March. By April and May, they start eating cake again. They fall off the diets, and the bank account was empty. And I'm like, what's happening here? And that was my only metric. It's like, does my bank account have money? And then I look backward, it's like, oh, labor tripled, but sales were down. Well, how did that work? And then I went back to my SOPs, and it's like, well, the SOP said if this person can't put out this much product, to hire another person. It didn't say, was the person running at the minimum acceptable speed first? So we had a bunch of people doing 1/4 of the amount of work they should be doing, and they just kept hiring more people following the SOP. I wasn't looking at my sales figures. I wasn't looking at my labor figures. I wasn't looking at, the daily revenue. I wasn't like nothing. I just like the bank account. It's like the money in the bank. Yep. Oh, we're doing good. So a lot of lessons right there, but got in just in time, and was able to turn things around and put better controls in place, update the SOPs to have some better understanding of what needs to be looked at. And even there, Seth, I got to tell you, every once in a while, there's a KPI I've stopped looking at that I need to. A couple of months ago, we had a corporate inspection, and I welcome those. I say, if we're ready for a customer, we're ready for the CEO to walk through the door. Like, why should we be any different?
Exactly.
And I really believe that. And we didn't do so great. Health and safety was all perfect, because I would lose my mind if it wasn't. But there was some other procedures that just weren't being followed. And I'm like, how did this happen? Because I have a district manager, I have the store manager, I have the baking manager, and all of them should have caught this one. So I stopped looking at it because I don't want to look 3 levels down. But for whatever reason, none of them were looking at it. And I now it's on my, okay, once a month, I have to reach down on this particular KPI and make sure that that's happening. And it was like, it's always humbling. Every time these things happen, I'm like, oh, okay, just learned something again. This is great. But that's just par for the course when you're running a business, is you're going to find there's stuff all the time.
Like you said, if you're not growing, you're dying. And the only way to keep growing is to keep learning.
Yes.
And you got to be watching that fishbone.
Yes.
Right, or the driver.
I guarantee you I'll never have to look at that KPI again now that I'm looking at it. Yeah. But, there was a hole. So then I looked for a few other holes that might have happened. Now I look at those once a month, and hopefully I'm in front of it. Do I truly believe it'll never be another one ever? No, but I'm really trying to be in front of it.
Probably tattooed on your arm now.
Yeah, if I had any tattoos, I would have put that on my arm. Yeah.
Looking back, what would you say your biggest lessons were that you learned from scaling multiple locations across, multiple states and from more than one franchise system?
The biggest lesson. Well, let's give you a series of lessons, you and the listeners.
Sure.
One is that realization that I was the roadblock. That was humbling because I had a lot of ego around being the first one in the state and opening about 40% higher sales than the average location opened in their first year. Like I thought I was hot shit. So it was very humbling to realize that I had a lot to learn and that I was the roadblock. The next piece that was very important was to stop thinking like I can't find anyone that does this better than me, and completely change. Anytime I have that thought now, I completely change it to how do I find someone that's better at this than me? And then not taking no for an answer. Like if I struggle with it, I'm just looking for that person the wrong way. I need to look in different locations. They're always out there. There's always people better than us at everything that there is.
Agreed.
You could be the GOAT today and you won't be the GOAT tomorrow. There's always someone coming up after you. So that was the big piece. And then I've always been a very people-centered person. And I had to learn to divide my love of people, because I really do, but also to put some boundaries in place for what you tolerate. I realized that walking past a lowered standard lowers all the standards. And you just can't walk past a lowered standard. You have to, no matter what it is or where you see it, you have to speak up in that moment, because it affects everything. Because if Mike's accepting a lower standard over here, maybe I could let this one slide and that one slide and it'll be fine. Those three things really brought me to where I could be comfortably doing what I'm doing today.
Very, very humbling. Great secrets for everybody to learn from, including myself. This all sort of circles back to our main question, right? That we started at is, why do some business owners build companies that are worth millions? Well, simply others buy a job. So I don't know if you want to wrap up and summarize on that.
Some businesses, business owners run a business all around themselves. I think it's ego-based, even if they say it's not, where they are the center of attention and they are the business. And they'll have a lot lower value than a business that has processes, procedures, systems, and people in place where a new owner could just step in.
Very good.
That's how I would answer it. Yeah.
It's so true. And I will use these words when I meet with my clients. I really enjoyed, getting to know you and having you on my show, obviously. And I can assure you the audience, feels the same as for my guests.
Thank you, Seth.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate the time. For the audience, Mike DeJong, DeJong. I'm sure if you wanted to learn more, you could buy his book, Grow Smart, Your Path to Freedom. I'm guessing it's on Amazon. That's where they would go to find it.
It'll be on, well, maybe by the time this podcast is up, it'll be on Amazon next week.
Okay. Is there any other place they can find it, or is that the first?
You can download it for absolutely free on MikeDeJong.com right now if you want it in a PDF. But if you want to watch it on your Kindle or get a hard copy, it'll be available on Amazon next week.
Well, free is always great.
Yeah.
Thanks again, audience. Please watch us on our next episode. You'll find this on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and YouTube. So thank you very much.